Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Mayer. I'm the Director of Career Development in the Center for Career Services. Welcome to today's webinar, Job Searching. This is part one of We've Got You Covered in a series here. So today we'll cover a number of subjects, including transferable skills, networking, and applying to jobs. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them in the questions pane. You can send your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them as time permits. So let's begin. So with transferable skills, the first thing we want to do is identify what we have. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll notice that this is a resource from what's called NACE. That's the National Association of Colleges and Employers. This organization talks to employers and talks to us and gives us information about how to help job seekers, whether current students or alumni. So looking at this list, it's some of it's what some people call soft skills. So if we start on the left, communication skills, motivation, initiative, teamwork, leadership, academic achievement, and so on. A lot of those soft skills are really sort of amorphous, if you get my meaning. They're not concrete. There's sometimes things folks might say in an interview, like I'm a strong communicator, I take initiative, I have strong interpersonal skills, but that's not enough. What we do need to do is sort of quantify these if possible and or provide stories, and we'll look at that. But the ones that are not soft skills, there are two here. We can see that they're listed academic achievement, and that certainly can be quantified by way of GPA. And the second is technical skills. So this is sometimes where somebody might take a test, they've passed a course, they've received a grade or a level of understanding in certain technology. And those sort of things are things that help the employer to understand where we are. So those are concrete. Things that are not concrete are the others. And again, we'll sort of focus on those because there's a little bit tougher. So of those transferable skills we just looked at, how do we represent those in the job search? Well, let's take a look first at a resume. You can see here that Jessica, she's got a resume up top. Incidentally, we no longer need our street address. That's sort of a fossil from the old school times where employers would send us stuff in the mail. Oftentimes our resume really only lives online, so having your city and state is all you need. Here too, she's got a professional email address, and what's really cool is she's amended her LinkedIn profile address, and that sort of gives her a branding piece there that's very important as well. But back to the point, how do we represent transferable skills? We can see here, this individual, Jessica, has chosen to use a summary. Now, the summary to me on a resume is like the trailer for a movie. It's designed to entertain us and get us to get interested to read on. So what she's done here is she's instituted adept at building strong partnerships. So that certainly speaks to communication skills and interpersonal skills as well as teamwork. So that's at least 2 of the 10 transferable skills employers look for. She mentions 2 directly by title. She mentions initiative, and that is one of the terms. So we've hit so far 3 of the 10. And then here too, we have Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So that could be considered in some cases technological skills. So of the 10 transferable skills employers seek, Jessica's managed at the very top of her resume to address 4 of them. So communication, teamwork with the first, initiative, and then technological. Not a bad way to do it, 4 right off the bat. So let's go a little bit further. So if you want to identify what you need for a job, what you can do is use what's called Wordle.net. Many of you folks may be aware of this. This came out years ago. A software designer created this. It's a really cool site. It's pretty artistic. It creates what they call word clouds. So somebody on LinkedIn got the bright idea to take job descriptions, copy and paste them into Wordle.net, and it creates what you see here. and that's what's considered a word cloud. So the algorithm in Wordle makes largest the terms that are mentioned the most in the job description. So this is critical in a number of ways, not only to identify what we need in terms of transferable skills. We can see training is the largest, and what does that sort of imply? Interpersonal skills, communication skills, teamwork skills, that's 3 right there. Organization, that talks about time management, that might relate to work ethic, which was one of the top 10 qualities, transferable skills employers are looking for. So there's lots of stuff to delve into with this sort of technique. So again, job description into Wordle, that can help you with not only creating what we saw what Jessica did with that summary, but this can also help even before then when you apply in terms of if your industry requires a cover letter or gives you the opportunity to write a cover letter, you want to sort of get these terms in there and relate to how you could do it. So it sort of demystifies what the job description needs. So in terms of the job interview itself, how do we bring transferable skills into the picture? So I know this might sound cheesy, be a STAAR, S-T-A-R-S. I will say from experience years ago, I did use this technique and it worked like a charm. So things like leadership, initiative, motivation. So again, those sort of transferable skills that employers are looking for, develop an STAR for those 10, and that's a great way to prepare for an interview. So an employer might ask this sort of question. Incidentally, this is a behavioral based question. When an employer starts out with something like describe a situation where, or tell me about a time when, they're asking about the past. Reason being, they think it's the most accurate predictor of the future. So describe a situation where you held a leadership position in the past. So the situation, nominated philanthropy chairperson, task was to raise some funds. The action was that you led a team of 15. The result is that you recruited 50 participants, sold 600 tickets, and so on. The point is, STAR is a great way to prepare an answer and have it become a story. Because in the end, an interview itself should be a conversation, not a transaction. It's not like, hey, here's the question. Hey, here's my answer. Yay. No, not necessarily. So you want to make sure it's a give and take. So with the story, what's really nice too, when you get to result, you've finished your answer. I know myself in the past when I was in interviews, sometimes I'd keep talking and I have an internal dialogue with myself. Like, did I finish answering their question? Where are we on this? So when you get to R, you're done, and that gives it a chance for the employer to probe. Last point on this slide is what this individual has done with their prep is in action and result, they've quantified information. That's critical to do because it gives an employer a sense of volume. So we've taken transferable skills, we sort of translated it to the resume. We've used it in terms of the job description, maybe crafting a cover letter. Sort of prepped for the interview with STAR, and let's say, yeah, we got the call. We're on stage, we've got the interview. Might feel a little daunting, everybody's checking us out. Could be a phone interview, video interview. Certainly in these times, we're not doing face-to-face just yet. So how do we prepare for this performance? Here's a couple tips to give you a leg up. So with phone interviewing, where would you to a face-to-face interview? Why? Think about it. When was the last time you dressed up? What did it do? You felt cool. Maybe you're going to a wedding, a ceremony, a graduation. Wearing good stuff, nice clothes, puts us in a professional mindset. So it's a great way to sort of, it's almost like a life hack, right? It'll help. Next one, if at all possible, use a landline. I know a lot of us don't have landlines. That sort of is a fossil for some. If you do have one, definitely use it because your connection's going to be solid. But no matter what, the second half there on that bullet, find a dedicated space. This gives you clarity and connection for concentration. It's critical. Without getting too far into it, to do this webinar myself, I looked at a number of different places in the house. I know everybody's at home at this point, and this seemed to be the best place. It took me a minute, but hopefully it's quiet enough and we're able to concentrate ourselves here. Third one, have the job description, your resume, LinkedIn profile, employer website visible, the employer that you're interviewing with. Why? Why not? You need to have this sort of information in front of you so that you don't have to remember it off the top of your head. While the employer is discussing certain things, you may run across something on their website. I'm not saying you got to jump around, but having these sort of documents, either on a tablet or on a laptop, maybe you printed something out, whatever it is, this isn't cheating. This is interviewing with style. Because in the end, too, the job search is about competition. You wouldn't want to think about somebody else interviewing and having, tons of intelligence at their fingertips, and you thought to yourself, boy, I wish I did that. Well, you can. It's totally permissible, and actually it's very cool. Okay, sorry about that. So moving forward, again with the interview, still on the phone. Seems elementary, let the phone ring twice, right? You let it ring too long, the employer or the search committee might be like, what's going on? Did we dial the right number? If it rings only once, sometimes the connectivity is not so good. And when you do answer the phone, answer using your name. This takes away any sort of question or concern about who the employer is reaching. It's a professional way to answer your phone. And when people are on the job, oftentimes, if they don't have caller ID on their phone, they will answer using their name just to let them know, the other party on the other side, who it is and that they've reached the right person. When interviewers introduce themselves, because you might have a panel interview, if it's one person, that's easy breezy. You just write down their name and refer to them throughout the call by name. But if it's a couple of people, write down their names and use them while answering questions. It might help. Some of us are visual folks. You might want to draw a rectangle, an oval, something that resembles a table so that you can visualize. And as people go around, if they ask questions in order, that's super easy. Then you can figure out who's asking questions. It's just another little hack to keep you in play. Don't be long-winded. Give interviews a chance to probe and interrupt you if necessary. As I said in the beginning, interviews should be a conversation. When people interview those who make it a conversation, it's not work. It's easy. And decisions to hire people are that much easier to make. So, we're preparing for the interview. We checked out the phone. Let's check out the video. I mean, Zoom is all over the place, right? It's ridiculous. In a good way. It's very helpful during this climate. But no matter what, with video interviewing, it's a different animal than the phone because oftentimes it's visual, right? So make sure your background is occupied. Maybe there's a picture in the background. Maybe there's a window. Hopefully there's not too much light. There needs to be some sort of contrast in the background so that it's not distracting. If it's just up against a blank wall, it looks like maybe you're in a hospital. Maybe you're incarcerated. Right? Some weird stuff there. So you definitely want to have some sort of contrast. Take notes during the interview. This is critical. Think about what that does. Anytime you've ever spoken and somebody's taking notes, you feel cool, right? But here too, you know that other person is engaged. So that fosters the engagement piece. Also consider how lighting will affect your background. That's why you sort of got to prepare this stuff and do sort of a mock interview beforehand. Because, I met with somebody the other day and, it was like the dark ages, I'm much in the dark about light. Who said that? I can't remember. Thomas Edison, right? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, check out your background. You don't want to be this guy. Look at this mock interview. This is a real shot. So what's going on with this guy? He's obviously not on point. Long story short, check your lighting first. That's actually me. I'm doing that on purpose, but it looks like I'm being beamed up by an alien. There's an abduction about to occur. Not professional. Let's move on. Another piece with video interview, look at the camera, not the screen. This gives the impression of eye contact. I realize that can seem a little difficult. But it's definitely something you want to do from time to time. Smile occasionally. People like to work with people they like. I know it seems silly, but people can even hear your smile in a phone conversation. It's something you want to do as well. It's just cool. It's friendly. And then practice. Mock interviewing through Hire Red Hawk, Zoom video, Google Hangout, shoot from the shoulders up. In terms of folks here, certainly from Montclair State, when you log into Hire Red Hawk, you can get there through montclair.edu/career services. When you log in there, go to resources on your left, then mock interviews. And there are a number of different things. You can, there's already ones that are canned. You can have a sample mock interview created by yourself and it records your performance. You can share this with your career advisor. You could share this with those close to you to get feedback. Now, for those of us who are alumni, the first step, if you're not already on Hire a Red Hawk, your first step is to register through what's called Montclair Connect. This is essential for getting access to Hire a Red Hawk. So you can go to montclair.edu and just search for Montclair Connect. You'll register with our alumni relations team. And then I believe within a few days, once you're verified, you can then go in and create your account and log into Hire Red Hawk and check out the jobs, upload your resume, RSVP for events, including our virtual career fair, which incidentally is April 15th. So a lot of things there. So networking, this is perhaps one of the most important parts of what we'll look at today, and sometimes the most difficult for some people. But think of it this way. Number one, build alliances and relationships. Don't ask for a job. Lots of folks, unfortunately, it's an unsophisticated move. You don't want to meet somebody for the first time and say, hey, you got any jobs, or keep me in mind. Start the relationship first. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them an email. If there's an industry-specific article or something that's cool that relates to their field, send that to them. It's got to be a relationship first. Number two, use LinkedIn to develop a list of employers who hire MSU alumni. You can go right into LinkedIn, type in Montclair State University, frankly, any institution you've attended, community college, vocational program, what else? Certificate programs, any of those things. Typically, they have an official university page, and you can look up where folks are hired and sort of target your search from there. This one's great. Number three, especially in this climate, conduct information interviews. Everybody's home, right? Why not set up a phone call, set up an information interview via Skype, via video, Google Hangouts, whatever you like. If you have, Zoom has a free access account. You can hold meetings for up to 40 minutes. Why not? So get a relationship going and ask if somebody's interested in an information interview. If you're not sure what that is, just Google information interview. Monster.com has a great list of steps that you can follow just to sort of get that process rolling. Follow through after meetings, catch up with people throughout the year, drop them a quick note. That's a great way to keep the relationship alive. And then finally, networking is a process. It's not transactional. So it's not like you do this for me and then we're cool. No, it's not cool. It's something for something, scratching backs. So what questions do you ask when you network? Easy. What trends, patterns do you see in your field? Take a look. What advice? I like number three. Once you get the relationship going, would you be open to reviewing my resume and cover letter? That's a great way to get your foot in the door. And then finally, the last one you definitely want to ask is there someone you recommend I reach out to for additional advice? This is when your personal network explodes in a good way. So always ask that question when you get with somebody. If they don't have somebody, okay, so be it. But some people will offer a name and a contact, and oftentimes that yields incredibly good results. So, applying to jobs. Let's just take this as a metaphor for job searching when you're actually applying here. So here's a starting line. And you got a couple of twists and turns, there's a straightaway, there's a number of different things you got to think about. So with the job description, before you apply, wouldn't you like to know the keywords, like right around here, so you can customize your application? Wouldn't you like to know somewhere around here what you're actually applying through? Is it a personal email address? Is it an applicant tracking system? There's a number of different things. So this is a sort of way to think wouldn't you like to run through the track first before you apply? So the perfect way to apply for jobs is not to apply for them right away. So use this website. It's called JobScan, and it's JOBSCAN.co, and it helps you create a report so that you can edit your resume before applying. Basically, what you do on the left is copy and paste your resume, then copy and paste the job description and hit scan. It will act like an applicant tracking system. So again, you're going to test drive your application similar to that racetrack metaphor before you even apply. The results of the scan, they'll give you a match rate. In this case, this is the answer to the black hole. I've applied and I've gotten no answers back. That's because my match rate between the position and my resume is only 23%. If I'm going through these ATSs, which might be Taleo, iSIMS, JobVite, any of those software packages out there, the software is going to be like, nope, we're not going to move you on. So the report includes a number of different things. You can see the list of hard skills here. So with this, my resume lists one item. It's mentioned quite a bit in the job description. But here too, I know psychology, but I didn't mention it, so that's a block. I want to go and edit the resume to include psychology. I can include that in the summary. I can include that in my bullet points, so it satisfies what the job description is interested in. So that's hard skills. Soft skills are addressed as well. Again, this is jobscan.co. It runs a report based on your resume and the job description and gives you answers as to why you might get a call, why you might not. So you might get a call if your match rate is 80% or above. Somewhere in that neighborhood tends to be the magic number so that you can get past these applicant tracking systems. So going forward, this webinar is recorded. Yeah, we will eventually have this on our YouTube channel. In order to get there, just Google this, because there's Michigan State University, Missouri State University, Montclair State University. So when you Google MSU Career Workshops YouTube, our page will come up. So it talks about a number of different things. Take a look there. So definitely check out our YouTube channel. And this is a little joke here, sure. We all know this guy, he evidently failed math at some point. So regardless of the job search, regardless of this economy, I think we're going to be okay. So at this point, we'll open it up to questions. If you guys have any questions, by all means, type them in the questions pane. I see one question here. I've been told not to put a summary on my resume. It is a must. My opinion is it's not a must, but to me, it's a more sophisticated technique than using an objective. The objective tends to be sort of old school. That's always good for, you know, a student on campus who might be looking for a job on campus. But other than that, yeah, the summary, again, in my mind, is, as we said in the beginning, the trailer to a movie. It gives us a number of different pieces of information to move forward with. Do you recommend using LinkedIn Premium to help with networking? Can't hurt. Anybody who's used it before, in my experience, has always said good things. What's nice about it is it's a month-to-month subscription. What's interesting too there is it does give you salary data, which can be great in terms of negotiating when the time comes. Here too, there's a feature on LinkedIn Premium that gives you an idea of who else is applying to those positions, so you get an idea of your competition. We got a number of questions here. These are great. I think you said earlier that home addresses are outdated and no longer needed on a resume. Is this right? Yes, that's correct. You do not need a home address. Employers do still like to see city and state so that they can extrapolate commute. You know, how far is it going to take you to get there? Those kinds of things. So yeah, good question. Do you recommend a cover letter all the time? If I'm ever given the opportunity to submit a cover letter, I'm definitely going to do it. Reason being, it's two. One is it shows how well we can write as job seekers. And as we saw from the very beginning, communication skills, whether it's verbal or written, is one of the main things employers look for. So that's one. The second reason I'm going to submit a cover letter is because it gives me an opportunity to reveal my knowledge of the employer. And that's critical because most cover letters, they're the same one. People copy and paste them, put in the employer's name and send them off. If I take time and I customize it to the employer, meaning I reflect on their mission, products, services, a recent announcement the company's had on maybe their LinkedIn page, something like that, I'm going to do it. Some folks say, hey, aren't you brown nosing when you do that? You talk about the employer. No, it's a conversation. It's just like networking. You're building a relationship. And here too, you're respecting your reader by talking about the employer as well. So always try and submit a cover letter if you can. Some industries don't want them, and that's fine too. Should you customize your resume for every position you apply to, depending on the description? Yes, I would. I wouldn't throw, to see whatever sticks on the wall and submit a ton of applications. I would use what we looked at, and that was JobScan. It's a free site. You do have to register for it. You get 5 free scans a month. And with each of those scans, you can save them. And if you're applying to a number of similar positions, you can use that report to optimize your resume so that when you do apply, it gets past these applicant tracking systems. So to answer you directly, should you customize? Yeah. Another easy way to sort of tweak that stuff is look at your bullets on your resume. Are they in order from greatest to least importance based on the position you're applying for? If they're not, reorder them. Okay. Will you be considered if your cover letter has the wording in the job description, even if your resume may not have them at all? Here's my thing. So if there are action verbs in the job description, I'm going to use those in my cover letter. I'm likely to use them in my resume bullet points because nobody owns those action verbs. If I can mirror the job description in such a way in my cover letter that makes it easy for the employer to read and see that I can do it, I'm going to go for it. Let's see. What else? These are good questions. Keep them coming. It's good stuff. Let's see. Oh, good one. Do you recommend messaging LinkedIn recruiters about applying? This is kind of a tough one. I've talked to a lot of recruiters, and a lot of them say follow directions, apply first, get into that. The only time where it's really sort of okay is maybe part of the virtual career fair. You meet with a recruiter and you send them a connection request. It's because you started a relationship with them first. Maybe you go to a face-to-face career fair, you get their business card, you send them a connection request. But if before applying, you reach out to the recruiter, or if you have applied and then you follow up with the recruiter and say, hey, what's the status of my application? Sometimes that's a turnoff. It's a gamble and it's a personal decision. And it also depends on industry. So if you're going to something like sales, it's okay to be that sort of assertive in that respect, but I have heard some recruiters get turned off by that. What do you say about gaps in your resume? Time out in the job market. If you are submitting a cover letter, I might address that. The 800-pound gorilla in the room weighs less as soon as you start talking about it. So I might say something like, there was a period of time in my work history that I was engaged in blank. Sometimes it's taking care of a family. Sometimes it's taking care of a loved one who needed health care. It could be somebody that was pursuing professional development, somebody who was pursuing entrepreneurship. You can address those things so that employers don't have questions about it. And the cover letter is probably the easiest way to do that. What else? Should all resumes look the same or vary in style? So, for example, I'm a teacher. What is the difference between my resume and an accountant's resume? Sure, lots of stuff there. So an accountant's resume certainly is going to be pretty straightforward. It's probably going to be Times New Roman. There's not going to be any fun flair in terms of formatting, that sort of thing. With teachers, certainly you want to talk about maybe areas of impact, maybe talk about differentiated instruction, manipulatives. Those are certainly things that we wouldn't see on an accountant's resume. So yeah, think about the industry. And again, if I were out on a job search, my first move, and I'm being dead serious, would be JobScan. I'd find a couple job descriptions I like, plug in my resume, and then tweak based on that report and optimize it. Should a resume fit on one page? Generally, that depends on industry too, but the quickest advice would be yes. If it's going on to page 2, you want to ask yourself 2 questions, R&R. So what's recent? And typically employers like to see things that are only within 10 years. And the other R is what's relevant, meaning is what I'm putting on, ending up on page 2 relevant to the position I'm applying to. So is it recent? Is it relevant? Yes. You're going on to page 2, maybe you want to lower the font size. Typically that's between 10 to 12. You can decrease your margins. I know I got job interviews years ago and I decreased my margins to 0.5 all the way around. I didn't stick with, 1 inch, the default setting. There's no rule against that. So yeah, try and get it to 1 page if you can. If there's any redundancy in bullets, right, you want to delete those. Just a couple of thoughts. So try to get it to 1 if you can. Something like higher ed or some of the, folks who are going for, C-level positions, oftentimes it's more than 1 page for sure. On JobScan, are there a limited number of times we can use it before it? No, great question. Love it. Jessica, good question. So join JobScan now, like in 5 minutes. I'm being silly, but it's the truth. So JobScan banks you 5 scans every month. So even if you don't use them, you accumulate them. And JobScan's very clever. Every once in a while, they'll email you, and they're not annoying. I've been part of the site for probably 6 or 7 years now. They'll email you blogs and stuff, but to the point, sometimes they want you to advertise for them. So if you post on your social media accounts, hey, check out JobScan, it's a great resource, they will give you free scans. And they will stay in your account until you use them. I'm not on a job search at this point. I don't, hopefully, everything continues to go well, but I've been part of JobScan so long, I've got, I think in the 70s, 71, 72 scans that are banked, and they've never taken them away. So join as soon as you can on JobScan. I get no kickbacks on this either, Just saying that right away. It's a strong site, very strong site. How can I get out of that pigeonhole of being a trucker for the last 18 years? When I apply for other types of jobs, they just look at me as a trucker. Sure, that's probably the sort of thing JobScan can look at as well for the other positions. But here too, we sort of have to govern ourselves and portray ourselves how we want others to see us. So rather than use the term, that you're trucking necessarily, but think about complementary adjectives, complementary verbs. So I always think like veteran and military resources, rather than them talking about, they were in charge of ammunition, they might say they were in charge of supplies. And then rather than, talking about boot camp leader or something like that, they might talk about that they provided education and or training. So there are ways to look at what it is that you've done and use those sort of transferable skills. So the work that you've done, sure, you had to communicate with those that you've gotten materials from, where you're going to end up, logistics conversations, that's always going to be big. So I think you can sort of use those transferable ones in addition to JobScan to redo a resume, to put it in such a light that is more likely to have them see you as where you want to go. How do you answer the salary question during the first interview? My thing with the salary, I don't bring it up until they offer me the position, or if they bring up the actual subject itself. So if the employer doesn't bring it up, and if I haven't been offered the job, I'm not going to talk about salary, because it's kind of presumptuous. Hey, look, I don't have the job, but what would I be making anyway? That's a big turnoff. What you want to do is, if you did LinkedIn Preview, you can get an idea of salaries. But no matter what, do your research. You can check out Glassdoor, the Occupational Outlook Handbook, a number of different resources there. And when you talk to them, if they talk about salary, one of the ways that you could say, I would feel fairly treated if I were compensated between blank and blank. So those two numbers, you want to give them a range and make sure that the lowest number is the lowest number in that range that you're willing to accept. Okay, so base it on research and state a range. That's one of the ways you can approach that. When people have approached you for networking purposes, what have they done or said that made you feel you should introduce them to others in your field? Frankly, and I'm not being flippant, if they were cool, meaning they had manners, please and thank you. They wrote me a nice introductory email. All rules for grammar were in place. They were professional. If somebody just wanted a few minutes of my time, and I've done this a number of times over the years, if they're professional, I will refer them on to somebody I have a contact with. Don't feel like you're bothering people or wasting their time, okay, by asking for contact details. Here's the thing. This is the philosophy, Peter. This is it. So give people the opportunity to help you, because some of them will. We know some of them won't, but those that want to help, because there are a lot of us, we just have to find them, right? So don't worry about bothering them. If they don't want to help, so what? It's almost as if a no, that opens another door to a yes. Will a copy of today's presentation be available so you can get information you might have missed? Bill, absolutely. This is still being recorded even with these this Q&A section we have here. I do have a list of the attendees, and I will be able to send that information out to you guys with a link, and eventually it'll be on our YouTube page, our channel rather. So to answer you directly, yes. What's the best way to let an employer know you're a career switcher? Again, I think of that 800-pound gorilla. If I'm submitting a cover letter, I'm going to reflect on that. Something like this. So having had a successful career in blank industry, I find myself now attracted to or interested in the following field. The reasons for this relate to Then you give them some answers. Let's see. Are some common technical skills like Microsoft Office already understood and worth mentioning on the resume? Great question. It's like, who doesn't know Microsoft Office at this point? But if the job description asks for Microsoft Office, then list it. If the job description only asks for Excel and Access, then list it. Reason being, if we end up in an applicant tracking system, that's exactly what those things are looking for. They're parsing keywords. So again, to answer your question directly, mirror the job description. If they're asking for it, go for it. Do you recommend keeping all past job experience on a resume? Do you experience a retail already? Yeah, so that's the R&R, what's recent. Generally, that's 10 years. We include information that's typically within the 10-year range. And then the other R is what's relevant. So if it's not relevant to the field, typically we don't get into that, especially if we're going on to page 2. But if the experience was transferable in some way, what you can do then is, again, use that cover letter. You might say in one of the paragraphs, while it may not appear immediately relevant, my experience with regard to retail introduced me to customer service, problem solving, and these are both abilities that I can bring to, something like that. What else? Yeah. How can you choose between different work experiences that are appropriate for a position when you cannot include all? Great question. Again, the cover letter is the secret weapon. So I might say, while it's not indicated on my resume, I have had experience with blank And I believe that's applicable to this position. Another key, and we didn't talk about this, but keep in mind that's our third webinar. That's going to be in May, beginning of May. You don't want to register for that one. It's LinkedIn tips and tricks. This is going to be a fun one. We demystify LinkedIn, not only how to have a great profile and how to use it. That's another way to, in addition to the cover letter, add that link to your public profile address to your resume. And if employers keen on that, they can see all your experience. So whereas the resume confines us to one page, two or so, LinkedIn's a web page. We could throw in the kitchen sink as long as we think it's going to be helpful. So I've heard that getting a job with a few years gap is difficult. Is that true? It can be. Some employers, of course, we're more attracted to an employer if we're currently employed than if we're not. It's just part of the game. But with that, explain the gap. You could explain that at some point in your cover letter and or your resume. It's something to address. But again, turn it around. There's no reason not to address it, but tell them why you're applying. You know, maybe take an online course and call it professional development. Add that to your summary. Add that to as a category to the resume, just to show them something recent that you've worked on. If you do not have a lot of leadership or items to put on your resume, is it going to affect the chances of getting that job or not? It could. It certainly could. And again, if we're going to through those tracking systems, if we don't have what the employer is looking for, we may not make it through to a human reader. So all the more reason to use JobScan, see what we're missing in terms of skills, and pursue those things. And an easy way to pursue, say, leadership or some qualities is to volunteer. I know we can't do too much of that, you know, certainly face-to-face is out of the question at this point, but when the time comes, if you're in New Jersey, you can go to jerseycares.org. So again, jerseycares.org, find out some volunteer opportunities. And that certainly shows initiative, teamwork, a lot of the qualities employers were looking for. Maybe eventually get some leadership. And it's a good way to do it because it's not a job. And here too, employers love to see people who are giving back, and that's the volunteer piece. What will the virtual career be like? We are having a webinar. I don't know if you're too excited, Alyssa, but it should be cool. We're going to talk about how to prepare for the virtual career fair that will be held on the 15th. The webinar itself will be held on April 8th. So definitely check our website, montclair.edu/career services. Click on upcoming events. Check out the university calendar. It's listed in both places. My buddy Jeff Poulos and myself will be there. We will give you tips on how to negotiate this virtual career fair. And a lot of those tips are, you know, sort of doing this virtual interview by way of phone or video. Those tips still apply. We're also going to include, again, April 8th, actual screenshots of what it will be like to enter the virtual fair that occurs on April 15th. You will talk to companies via chat. Sure, Bill, no problem, dude. Let's see. Is it beneficial to refer yourself in the third person, either on LinkedIn or in a cover letter? Definitely not in a cover letter. You want to use first person. LinkedIn is a little bit different. I tend to approach LinkedIn as the resume. So there's no first person, there's no third person. I really just use action verbs and get into the information there. I don't make it like a story. So again, cover letter, in my opinion, would be first person. And LinkedIn, I tend to phrase as if it was a resume. Should your thank you letter be short and sweet and to the point? Should you talk about what you most enjoyed? Yeah, definitely. You know what's nice? Maybe I'll step back here for a second. Let's see. Okay, cool. So on MSU Career Workshops, YouTube, right here, boom. Cover letters and thank you notes. It shows paragraph by paragraph how to write the cover letter, how to write the thank you note. Short and sweet is always cool, no matter what. Definitely send a thank you note. Yeah, I sent a thank you note one time, and I knew the guy was going to, he was a big soccer fan. So I mentioned he was going to a game that night, and so I sent a cover letter the next day, and I said, you know, at the end, I said, I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope your team won, you know, whatever, something like that. But be genuine, and why not? Talk about what you enjoyed. You know, having learned more about your company, I'm even more excited by the possibility of joining the team. Sure. Let's see. What should I do if I don't see a deadline on the job posting by an employer? Well, I would apply as soon as I could. I wouldn't wait. That's typically not the case, but I'd hate for you to wait on something and then the posting's removed. So I would apply as soon as I could. Should we have a quota on how many jobs we apply to per day? Sometimes job searching is a numbers game. My recommendation is that we don't say, you know, I'm going to send out 30 a day. I would probably send out 5 and customize them like bananas. You know, really get deep, do job scan, customize the bullet points, the verbs based on the job description, optimize it directly. So 5 really strong ones to me would be better than throwing 30 out there. How do you convert an academic CV to a resume? Oh, I like that. That's cool. Well, certainly length would be the main concern. Job scan would be a secondary piece to sort of winnow down what it is that the position is looking for, and then create, again, that sort of summary at the beginning. It depends on the position too, but if somebody's got an academic CV and they've got publications that aren't as relevant to the position they're applying for, that's certainly something we're not going to include. But, you know, I'm a huge fan of education and accomplishments, so I might say, you know, my application, while it's not indicated on my resume, my LinkedIn profile does provide a full picture of what it is that I can bring to the table, and then provide the link for your LinkedIn profile. Should the summary be in first or third person? Again, the summary, if we look, I'll go back to, I think we have one other question. Do people still say thank you by snail mail or all electronic? Depends. So if I know, one of the best questions to ask and at the end of the interview is, excuse me, what are the next steps in this process? So if they tell you we're going to make a hire decision tomorrow, I'm certainly going to send it electronic. Sorry. And if it's, you know, a week out, I might send snail mail. Depends. Snail mail is a nice touch. It's rare. And it's nice to get a thank you note. But typically, if it's time sensitive, 24 to 48 hours after an interview, I'm going to send an electronic thank you. So again, with that summary, I typically write it not in first person, because resumes aren't written in first person. Just something to include. Action verbs right off the bat, skills, content right away. Any other questions? Just taking a look here. I think we're good. Okay. So let's see here. Thank you everybody for attending today's webinar, Job Searching. We've got you covered. You'll soon receive a survey on the presentation. Please provide your feedback, as this will help us improve our services. Yes, this webinar was recorded and will be added to our YouTube channel at some point. Again, you want to search Google using MSU Career Workshops, one word, space YouTube, and then you'll find our page. And honestly, be sure to take advantage of online career services. Go to montclair.edu/career services for all these details. Be safe, take care, have a great rest of the week. I wish you all luck in the job search. Check out the remaining few things that we have. Thank you, Ann. And then maybe one more thing. If you're unemployed due to a layoff, should you address that in your cover letter or wait to address that in the interview? Nicole, I might address that in the cover letter, especially nowadays, the layoffs and a number of different things. This is just an unprecedented time. I might indicate in one of the bullets on my resume, it's a risk, but it would help to answer the question. I might say something like, my position was no longer, how do I want to say it? I'm trying to remember how I said it. due to environmental conditions related to COVID-19, my position was no longer available, something along those lines. And, you know, most folks worth their salt will understand because, you know, again, this is unprecedented. But if there was a layoff, you can mention that. And then that would sort of address any sort of gap we might have. Yes, thank you, everybody. All right, cool. Be cool, use your powers for good, stay safe, and check out the other webinars. We have 2 more. There's one later this month, and that's on phone and video interviewing. And then the other one is on LinkedIn. Okay, thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Take care.